something I've heard you talk about and written about as well is like marketing as a product and having marketing
Yeah.
manage like a product team. Like this really resonates with me. Like you're talking about like marketers wanting to have their website on a CMS. Like you need engineers and designers, writers, operations, project managers, like a whole multidisciplinary function to bring what
Yeah.
is on the surface looks like a really simple message, right? A homepage or whatever. Why do you think this is so beneficial for marketing in this context? And like, what is the
Yeah.
nirvana point for marketers in this scenario?
The Nirvana point. I like that phrasing. So there's two. When I say like marketing is more like product, or marketing should be thought of like a product team, there's 2 points here that are kind of like wrapped up in. The first point is that people, including marketers, often think that marketing is like building a marketing team or running a marketing team is like running a sales team, or that marketing is a service organization to sales. I think that's the wrong approach. I think mm, sales is more singularly focused on like a specific area of the funnel and like hitting their quotas and like all of that stuff, and like it's just a different thing. And I think that tension between what marketing does, which is more full funnel and like more holistic and one-to-many communication and multidisciplinary, like that's a good tension between the two teams that helps drive, you know, revenue. But to think that you're just building a marketing team like a sales team really sets up recruiters, marketers, founders, everyone for failure, because it's not just like that. It's not an easy, and finance as well. It's not like an easy math formula to figure out how many people you need in marketing like it is for sales. In sales, there's usually like a few role archetypes like SDR, BDR, AE, sales manager, head of sales. Marketing is way more complicated. There's like a million roles. And so it's much closer actually to a product team. And by product, I mean like engineering product design. We call that the EPD org or whatever it is. Um, and so, marketing is multidisciplinary. They're thinking about both short and long-term revenue. They're thinking about their goals need to be set that are kind of like, here are the big projects or the big bets I'm taking, much like you'd have big feature launches on the product side. But also there's things I'm doing to drive revenue right now, which on the product team, the equivalent there is like, I'm trying to get this number of active users with this amount of engagement all the time. And so the goal setting structure, the number of roles, even the skill sets of sort of that, like creative design, brand aspect alongside the sort of more technical components, that fuel and engine mix, it's just more similar. And so once you start thinking like that, I think it just makes it way more easy to understand how this org is going to shape up and how headcount planning should work and all of this stuff. So it's sort of an unlock when you explain it this way or I found like just in explaining this way to founders, recruiters, finance, et cetera, that it's just like, it's actually a lot more like building a product org. So stop trying to think of it like building a sales org and you'll save
Mm.
yourself a lot of headaches. And then the other point of this marketing is more like product is that marketing is actually building another product. The marketing is a product, like, and you can break that down and be like, your website's a product and your content's a product and every individual piece of content is like a feature. But if you think about it that way of like, what am I going to put my bets on? Like, what are the things that we're going to keep going? Like the features we're going to keep doubling down on? What are the new features that we need to build? Like, you're going to think about marketing in a better way, which is like, what's the core work I need to do to kind of keep the lights on? What are the big spikes and the big inflection points that we're planning for, rather than just like throwing everything into this product and just having a mess of features? Like, what's the strategy here? So I think it like just, I wish I had thought to frame it like that when I was at companies, because I think it would have helped me think about what I was doing better and how
Mhm.
to explain it better. And so, yeah, that's one, like fuel and engine, marketing's more like product. These are things that when I explain them to people are just like light bulb moments
Mhm.
and understanding how to, marketing. The
Got
nirvana point really quickly is getting everyone to understand that and then being able to do your thing, right?
it. I love the point. I hadn't thought of it this way, but the flow point or the point that you made around hiring for marketing, like it's not a math formula. I know in my past life, I've been asked like, what would you do if you had this many more headcount? And you're like, yeah, but I need an engineer on my team. I need analytics. Like these people are not going to just add revenue like adding a salesperson. Like I know
Yeah.
that sometimes there's like this formula, like salesperson will add this much, revenue per year. So explaining that internally, I think is quite the use a cliche, nut to crack. And I guess I just dived a little deeper into that point. Like, how do we as marketers and when we're building out our teams, like this product focus, how do we kind of evaluate the team members that we need? Like, how do you take a look at the current landscape and think like, hey, I'm going to need this long term. I'm going to need a product marketer. I'm going to need an engineer or something like that.
Two things. One thing, and I'll dive deeper on this, is you've got to do planning and goal setting before you do headcount planning, the marketing work planning and goal planning. And then the second being back to the fuel and engine metaphor. So let me talk about the like goal setting. A lot of companies are like, we're not at the stage where we need to set goals yet, or the rest of my company doesn't do OKRs. So why should marketing? I don't care if it's an OKR system or something else, or just like goals or big rocks or whatever it is, just a system. In marketing, there's infinite things to do. Much like a product team would have a hard time operating without a product strategy and a vision for what the product is going to be and a roadmap. I mean, some do, but it's like usually in people's minds. You have to have that stuff for marketing. So it's back to that same analogy. And you have to have a plan not only for like, what are my KPIs? Like your only goal in marketing can't be like a pipeline KPI or an MQL KPI or whatever it is, sign up KPI. It has to be, you need to also have goals for the big projects and the big initiatives and the big bets that you're making and the tests that you're doing. And when you plan that out, I think it's helpful to also say, here are the things we would love to prioritize and love to do, kind of our non-goals or our goals on hold. And like, what would it take to be able to do that in terms of hiring? So I like to make my hiring plan that way. Like, what's possible with the team that I have? What are my non-goals or my future goals that I can't get to right now? And this works for a lot of reasons. One, it works for headcount planning. And two, it helps say to other teams, we really want to do this stuff that you're requesting, but we can't do that unless we have another marketing ops person to set the foundation and all of that, or another writer or another designer to support everyone. And then the other thing I think about is back to the fuel and engine analogy. If you add another layer into that, it's like there's really like fuel, engine, and foundation. So foundation's like, and there's overlap in all these things. It's perfect, but there are, the fuel is like all the things you're creating, a lot of the content you're creating, as I mentioned. And so there's roles related to fuel, and there's roles related to engine, like demand gen manager, or growth marketing manager, or lifecycle marketer. And then there's foundational stuff that's more around like some of the product marketing research. And you could put marketing ops in there. You could also put marketing ops in engine. But you're really trying to balance all these things. And so I usually actually like kind of not really go back and forth between fuel and engine people, but kind of. Like, it's like, I'm going to hire a fuel person. I'm probably going to need another engine person. And like, part of, at some point I got to like check on my foundation, and is there a hire I need there that will enable me to do things? And maybe you could think about it as there's like a fuel foundation and an engine foundation. And those, I think people think like sales, like you just keep adding a demand gen person, or keep adding like an SEO person or a paid person, or you keep adding a product marketer or a content marketer, and like output is going to be, kind of easy to formulate. But again, you got to go back and think about that foundational stuff. So I think balancing fuel and engine is a good way to think about it. It just like naturally kind of works for that too. The other thing I'll say about hiring or headcount planning in general is like, your plans in marketing headcount, much like in the product side, are made to be broken. It's not like sales again. People that you hire, like they're different. There's a lot of talk about shapes today, but as you can tell, I'm a pretty visual thinker. So, like people's, shape of their skill set, like I like to say it's pie shape, but it's actually very amorphous. And so you might hire someone that like spikes in different areas, like it fulfills the role, but they look different. And so it's a puzzle that's changing with every piece you put into it on the marketing side. And so you need to allow for that flexibility. So it's not as simple, again, as like, I'm going to hire 10 AEs and get what I need. And so you need to set that expectation from the start, whether you're leading all of marketing or you're leading growth marketing or you're leading marketing ops, that like this is going to change. Like the number might stay the same, but like, and maybe it doesn't, because maybe you hire someone who just like makes everything so much better and you don't need that other person. So I think like you need to make it as flexible enough for it to change. And some of my best advice as you scale is to not put very specific roles for those things. Like if you can get away with it, just be like fuel marketer, engine marketer. Because it's going to change. And quite honestly, other people in the company don't care what all those different roles mean. I think it's easier to do it that way.
Love the analogies you're coming through here.
Well, first of all, I have a newsletter, and every newsletter kind of has like a framework. So I'm not coming up with these on the fly here, but I also I think in diagrams. So something that's interesting is like I make my people find interesting. I don't know if it's interesting. It's just the way my brain works, but I make diagrams before I write newsletters. So there's a draft of like almost every diagram before I do the write.
Very cool.
Yeah, because I'm not a writer, like at all. I am now, I guess, but I don't think of myself as a writer. I have to start with something, so I like make frameworks and visuals, and then I like put the words around it.
Yeah, no, the analogies are definitely helping us. Like we turn every audio episode into a GPT powered blog post with
Yeah,
like
cool.
takeaways and summaries, and we got Midjourney header images there. So like the fuel and the engine is just gonna be so easy for me. But I love like it's easy to grasp in a sense. Like I'm picturing the what you just said, like demand gen, inbound, paid content on the fuel side. Like it is part of the product of what is marketing,
Yeah,
but just like a product team building features and like the UI that's very front facing for people, there are back end engineers and
yeah.
people that are working on the engine part. And that's like the frameworks and product marketing and go to market and the marketing operations team and analytics. So, yeah, love that. I also love the point where you said your headcount plans are made to be broken because hell, like we're in a startup and shit changes fast. Like it's good work to do it and like roadmap it and see kind of a vision in the sand, but it's made to be broken.
It's made to be broken, but also that, yeah, again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't make it because it does help you. Your headcount planning needs to be aligned with the activities. And I see too many people do this in isolation. So it's like, oh, we want to do this like huge web project or like finally get our website on our CMS, to pick the thing I always like to talk about, drive home. It's like, well, we can't do that if we don't have someone that like owns and manages the website. Like, who's going to project manage that? And so we got to make a hire before we can do that. And so you need to do those things in tandem.